The night she asked me that question, the rain was falling so hard against the cafe windows it felt like the sky itself was trying to break in. I remember staring into my untouched cup of tea, watching the steam disappear into the cold air, wondering how a single sentence could hold so much weight. She looked at me with soft, curious eyes and said I seemed like a good man, then asked if I was married. I felt something inside my chest tighten, like an old wound had been brushed by accident. I swallowed the truth that had been sitting in my throat for years and told her no, that I was still waiting for her. I didn't realize how broken my voice sounded until I saw her expression change. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that love doesn't always arrive on time but it always arrives when it's meant to, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel, The Kindness Chronicles. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Her name was Ariba. I had only known her for 3 weeks. We met at a small bookstore tucked between a pharmacy and a tailoring shop, the kind of place that smelled like old paper and quiet dreams. She had been standing on her toes trying to reach a novel on the highest shelf, and without thinking I had stepped forward and taken it down for her. She thanked me with a smile that felt genuine, not the polite kind people wear like masks. That day, we talked about books, about how stories sometimes make more sense than real life, about how people hide their pain between pages. I never planned to see her again. But fate has a habit of returning the people we are meant to confront ourselves with. The truth was, I had been waiting for someone for almost 9 years. Her name was Zoya. She had been my first love, the kind that doesn't ask for permission before rearranging your entire world. We met in university when I was still naive enough to believe love alone could fix everything. She was fierce and ambitious, always talking about building a life bigger than the small neighborhood we grew up in. I was quieter, more cautious. I wanted a simple life. A home. Stability. We loved each other deeply, but we loved different futures. When her family arranged her marriage to someone wealthier, someone established, she cried in my arms and told me she had no choice. I told her I would wait. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because I thought sacrifice was proof of love. Maybe because I was afraid of letting go. She left 2 months later. The last time I saw her, she was dressed in red, her eyes lined with coal, her smile trembling under the weight of expectation. She didn't look back when she walked into that car. But I stood there long after it disappeared, convinced that if I waited long enough, life would circle back. Years passed. I built a career in accounting, the kind of job that is stable but forgettable. My friends married, had children, posted smiling family pictures online. My mother tried to set me up with countless proposals, each time asking gently when I planned to move on. I always told her I wasn't ready. The truth was uglier. I didn't know who I was without the hope of her return. Waiting became part of my identity. It was easier to cling to the ghost of what could have been than to risk something new. When Ariba asked if I was married that night in the cafe, she didn't know she was touching a scar that had never healed properly. She had invited me out after running into me again at the bookstore. She said she liked how calm I seemed, how I listened without interrupting. She said it was rare. I laughed at that because calmness was just another word for emptiness sometimes that I told her I was waiting for someone. I expected her to laugh awkwardly or change the subject. Instead, she leaned back in her chair and studied me as if I were a complicated chapter she wanted to understand. There was no judgment in her eyes, only curiosity and something else I couldn't name. She asked me how long I had been waiting. I told her. 9 years. Saying it out loud made it sound almost foolish. Over the next few days, I thought she would stop replying to my messages. I assumed she would see me as damaged, emotionally unavailable, stuck in the past. But she didn't disappear. She continued texting me about random things, about a stray cat that kept visiting her balcony, about a recipe she tried and failed, about a poem that made her cry. Slowly, she began asking me about Zoya. Not in a jealous way. Not in a competitive way. But in a way that felt like she wanted to understand the shape of my grief. I resisted at first. Talking about Zoya felt like betraying the promise I had made to myself. But Ariba had a gentle persistence. One evening, as we walked along the beach with the salty wind tangling her hair, she asked me if I loved Zoya or if I loved the version of myself I had been when I was with her. The question hit harder than any accusation could have. I didn't have an answer. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I replayed memories of Zoya, not the romantic ones but the complicated ones. The arguments about money. The times she dismissed my dreams as small. The way I had slowly shrunk myself to fit her ambitions. I began to realize that what I had been waiting for wasn't her. I had been waiting for closure that never came. I had been waiting for the universe to validate my pain by returning what I lost. Meanwhile, Ariba's presence in my life grew warmer, brighter. She had her own scars. She told me about her engagement that had ended because her fiancé couldn't accept her desire to continue working after marriage. She said she refused to become smaller for someone else. I admired her strength. She was everything I once encouraged Zoya to be, but this time I wasn't trying to hold her back. I was just listening. The suspense in my heart built quietly. I found myself looking forward to her messages. I caught myself smiling at my phone like a teenager. And then guilt would crash in, reminding me of the promise I had made years ago. It felt as though I was cheating on a memory. One evening, months into our friendship, Ariba stopped responding. Her messages had become a daily rhythm in my life, and the sudden silence felt deafening. I told myself not to overthink it. But hours turned into a day, then two. My chest tightened with a familiar fear of abandonment. Finally, she called. Her voice sounded different, distant. She said her parents had found a proposal for her and were pressuring her to consider it seriously. She said she was tired of fighting alone. I felt the ground shift under me. The irony was cruel. Here I was, holding on to a woman who had built a new life, while another woman stood in front of me asking, without words, if I would choose her. I wanted to tell Ariba not to accept the proposal. I wanted to confess that she had become important to me. But fear wrapped around my throat. What if I was only drawn to her because she threatened to leave? What if I wasn't ready? Days passed in uncertainty. She agreed to meet the family of the man her parents suggested. I spent those days battling myself. My mother noticed my restlessness and finally asked me what I was running from. For the first time, I told her everything. About Zoya. About the waiting. About Ariba. My mother listened quietly and then said something that shifted everything. She said love that is meant for you doesn't require you to freeze your life in place. It walks beside you, not ahead of you, not behind you. That night, I stood outside Ariba's apartment building, my heart pounding like it had 9 years ago. I didn't have a rehearsed speech. I only had honesty. When she opened the door, she looked surprised but not unhappy. I told her I didn't know what the future looked like. But I knew I didn't want to spend it waiting for someone who had already chosen another life. I told her I was tired of loving a memory. I told her I wanted to try, even if it scared me. There were tears in her eyes, but they weren't sad. They were relieved. She admitted she had been afraid of becoming second choice in my life. I told her she wasn't a replacement. She was a new chapter. Healing wasn't instant. There were moments when old memories resurfaced. There were nights when I questioned whether I deserved happiness after holding on to pain for so long. But Ariba was patient. And more importantly, I began being patient with myself. I deleted old messages I had kept for years. I stopped checking Zoya's social media. I stopped romanticizing a past that had hurt me. Months later, on a quiet evening by the same beach where she had once challenged my perspective, I realized something profound. I was no longer waiting. I was living. The difference felt like stepping out of a dark room into sunlight. I looked at Ariba laughing at something a child had said nearby, and for the first time, I felt gratitude for the heartbreak that had shaped me. Without it, I might never have recognized the quiet strength standing beside me. Life has a way of testing whether we are brave enough to release what no longer serves us. I had mistaken loyalty to my past for loyalty to love. But real love doesn't demand you sacrifice your future for it. If this story has touched your heart even a little, if you have ever waited for someone who never came back, or if you found the courage to let go and begin again, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles. And before this story ends, I have a special request for you. In the comments, write this line: I choose to stop waiting and start living. Let it be your quiet promise to yourself. Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is not wait for the door to reopen, but to walk toward a new one with trembling hands and an open heart.